This man is from forbidden knowledge. This man has been doing his work in our field of extraterrestrial. They're not extra, they're part of us. I want y'all to give a well-deserved round of applause to the one, the only, Billy Carson! Some love, give him some love, get him, come on, give him some love. Hey, to be mingling with George Norrie and Art Bell and all them and being the original black man doing his work amongst them white folks and showing them that he can do the work. Come on, man, give it to him.
Thanks a lot, guys.
It's not easy.
Thank you. I'm like, appreciate it. I know it's hot in here, so even standing up probably, yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for the patience. Thanks for sitting down. Thanks for coming out and waiting. Thanks for battling the traffic from the marathon to get here and everything else. Even just being patient enough to wait for this to pop up on the screen so that we can even start. Sometimes when you're trying to do things that are in alignment with the light, in alignment with the universe on the positive side of the yin, the yang wants to try to come and blindside you and always try to find a way to knock you down. So, but we're going to continue and we're going to try to make this thing happen. We're not going to try, we are going to make this thing happen. We're going to, complete this mission that we came here today to complete and spread this knowledge and this information. And we're not going to let anything stop us. Okay? So without further ado, I'm not going to wait too much longer. I normally do my shameless plugs in the beginning of my presentation because sometimes I run out of time. So I will be teaching the mystery school in Burbank, California, the second installment of the mystery school, December 7th and 8th at Dame Dash Studios. The one we just had a few weeks ago was phenomenal. There are some people here that was at that mystery school, and it was absolutely amazing. 12 hours of on-stage, me, 6 hours a day, plus entertainment. One of the entertainment, one of the artists is actually here right now, Jackson Turner. Thanks, Jackson, for coming out. And he did a phenomenal job there, and then also food and everything else. So it was a phenomenal thing. It was really 8 days, okay? My book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, is a bestseller on Amazon and has been for 6 straight months. I know a lot of people, thank you. A lot of people came here to get the book in person, and unfortunately, I did run out very rapidly. I had only about 70 books. However, I did log into my shopping cart app, so if you go to my website, forbiddenknowledge.com, with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com, you can get the book. Just use coupon code FORBIDDEN, and that will give you a discount, which will give you free shipping, so that you can at least get the book the same price that it was being offered here, so you don't have to pay for the shipping. So Forbidden, FORBIDDEN, that's your shopping cart coupon code, and you can get the book there, and every single book will be autographed. Because I pre-autograph thousands of books every single week, okay? So I guess I got used to it now because about 14,000 books have gone out. It's really amazing, really amazing. Thank you. I kind of, for those who don't know me that well, maybe everybody might not know me, but I'm a field researcher, first and foremost. I have been on a lot of TV shows, but what got me to those TV shows, what got me to the lectures and conferences and everything? My field research. People started recognizing the fact that I was actually getting out in the field. Here's a picture of me inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid and out in front of the Great Pyramid. I've been in tunnels underneath the Great Pyramid. I've been in areas and chambers that you can't even get access to if you're just a regular person. You have to get special access. So I've had the capability of doing that, and the word started getting out that I was out there in the field doing things and reporting information back that a lot of people, of my complexion, hadn't had the opportunity to do, and it kind of ignited a little bit of fame, really. And people started catching on to it, and people in different positions want to, obviously capture the audience that I'm captivating, and started putting me on TV. So the hard work started by paying my dues out there in the field. Here's where I'm inside of the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid. I'm sorry, the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. I had just crawled up the Grand Gallery. And you can see that the speed of light in the vacuum is 299,792,458 meters per second. And some people say, well, meters per second didn't even exist until like the 1960s, but no, that's false. Because when you look into the ancient Proto-Sumerian text that was discovered in Mesoamerica, which is now we call Mexico, We have tons of those bowls and those potteries and those Sumerian tablets or those Proto-Sumerian tablets in museums right now that document the metric system existed 8,000 years ago. So they're wrong. The guy who probably invented the metric system didn't invent it, he just rediscovered it, or maybe he read these Sumerian tablets and said, hey, I found a way to make some money. So what's ironic is those exact, meters per second are the exact same digits in the speed of light, which is incredible, because if you go to the coordinates, 29.9792,458, which is the longitude of the Grand Gallery inside the Great Pyramid, you get the speed of light. There's no coincidences here. This is me on top of Ollantaytambo in Peru. This was an amazing shot right here. I've went through ruins, I've climbed mountains, I've hiked through jungles, I've done it all. I'm at Sacsayhuaman with my guide here. I always like to get homegrown guides when I go on my trips. I don't want guides that are like flown into the area, because you can get those commercialized guides. I want the people that grew up in the neighborhood, people that were there, that were born there, that were raised in the area. I want their information. I want their take on the story of what they think happened and what their ancestors think happened. I don't want the mainstream media's perception of it. And when I go to Egypt, I always get myself a homegrown Egyptologist and a homegrown guide. I have those two that I go everywhere with, and I get a private driver so they're not influenced or have any other outside people trying to communicate with me, because I want to find out exactly what's going on, unless I'm leading a tour myself. But I think that's very important. Here I am in Asia, in Cambodia. This is where dinosaurs did walk with man, because how can a man 7,000 years ago draw a dinosaur with its skin on it? It would just be bones if all they discovered were bones. So dinosaurs and men did walk together in not too long ago. I mean, not so far in the distant past. Dinosaurs, and they were in Cambodia, in Asia, and the evidence of it is carved into stone. Not only there, but also if you go to where I'm going in a few weeks, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, you'll see that there's gigantic stone pillars there, and those stone pillars have dinosaurs etched into them as well. So mankind did walk with dinosaurs simultaneously. Here's a picture of me in Akrotiri, Greece, which was earlier this year. I went to a dig. This picture is just one small section. This dig is a few miles, and they've only got like 10% or 15% of it actually excavated. But the reason why I documented this area is because I saw advanced plumbing. I saw toilets that work, piping that ran underground that looked like it was almost like PVC piping. It was incredible. A sophisticated grid system and a sophisticated city system, and everything you see there when you go to this location is absolutely astounding. Drill holes that go through, blocks of stone that are 3 and 4 meters long. How did they get those perfectly made drill holes in there? I don't think they use chicken bones. Just my personal opinion. Here I am at Teotihuacan, Mexico. I'm standing, you can't see my feet, but I'm standing at the highest level on the Pyramid of the Moon, which is the pyramid that Thoth dedicated to his wife. And that pyramid is actually 8 pyramids stacked on top of each other, the Pyramid of the Moon. And behind me is the Pyramid of the Sun. The Pyramid of the Sun is exactly 50% the height of the pyramid at Giza, with the exact same size base. And the pyramid at Giza, in case you didn't know, is the exact height of the average landmass on the planet Earth. So somebody in ancient times had to be above the planet to scan the Earth and find out the topography to create a pyramid that averaged that landmass height. And how do you do that in modern times? Well, we would have to take a satellite, put it into space. And the satellite can't go around the equator of the planet like most typical satellites do. The satellite has to go around the North Pole, which is something we couldn't do until like 1998, I believe. Put a satellite into North Pole orbit. So when the satellite's in the North Pole orbit, it's going around the planet in this direction while the planet spins on its axis. And what it does, it takes swaths of imagery and scans as the planet rotates on its axis. And so during a full rotation, then the satellite captures a full-scale image of the entire planet. And then from there, the data is analyzed and you get the topography and everything else. And from analyzing the light from the planet, you can also tell where different types of ores are and different types of resources are located on the planet without having to go there physically. So this is technology that's been around for decades, but it's really ancient technology. We only rediscover everything. And the only way to get that pyramid to that height is with a satellite that's in the North Pole orbit that scans this planet while it rotates on its axis. So Let that marinate. So when people say, why am I talking about aliens? Because I think they're real, and I think we are the aliens. That's just my personal opinion. We are the aliens, okay? That's from everything that I've researched and from every ancient culture, that's what I found out. Here I am at the Pyramid of Kukulkan, which is also a pyramid dedicated to Thoth the Atlantean. He's also called Kukulkan. He's called Viracocha. He's called Tahuti Tahuti. So many names, this guy, Lord Pakal. But I'm standing there at the bottom of this pyramid, obviously. And it's just an amazing pyramid because it's a calendar. The steps and the location and the angle and the longitude and everything else predict the amount of days in the year. All these computers are gigantic stone computers, and they're full of tons and tons of information. That's a whole other lecture that we'll be getting into on another time when I come back. But I just wanted to drop that couple of tidbits there to show you guys that I am a field researcher. I've been around the world twice in the last 24 months, and I pride myself on getting out there and experiencing the world in a way where I get my hands dirty. I want to touch, feel, smell, experience the cultures firsthand. I don't want to rely. I'm not a YouTube, Wikipedia, click and go guy. That's just not me. Not putting down anybody that that's trying to be in this position that does that. I'm just not one of those guys. I'm a guy that gets out there. I'm going to give you the first-hand information based off of what I saw with my own eyes in most cases. And I think that's very important. Today we're going to be talking about the Kemetic principles for manifesting reality, manifesting things into your reality through the quantum realm. And Kemetic and Hermetic. Hermetic is a newer term. Hermetic is obviously a Greek term that's much newer, but it goes back to the Kemetic. Kemetic is the land of Kem, the land of the black people. I mean, it's just well documented. That's what Kem, the land of Kem, actually means, the land of the black people. Egypt, even though it had changed hands, or before it was Egypt called land of Kem, many, many times, it started off as a black nation. Those black people are still around today, and they are now the Dogon tribe. Dogon tribe were the original inhabitants of the land of Kem many, many thousands and thousands of years ago. They migrated out of the land of Kem after one of the overthrows, because the land, unfortunately, was overthrown 7 times that we know of. Many races have ruled over Egypt. So Egypt was not always black. Egypt was many different races over many different time periods, over the dynastic periods. Started off black, and it changed. Okay, but that's just a fact. I'm not going to sugarcoat or lie to you guys and say the country was black 24/7, because it wasn't. If anybody's telling you that, they haven't done enough research. And if they have done the research, maybe they don't want you to know that. But the fact of the matter is, it did start off black. The Dogon tribe migrated to Mali, Africa, where they still keep a lot of their original traditions. And one of their biggest traditions that that they keep in Mali, Africa, with their leader, their Dogon leader, is the fact that beings came from the Sirius star system, Sirius B, which we couldn't see. You still can't see with the naked eye, but we couldn't see with satellite technology and observatories until the late 1960s, early 70s, I believe it was. So we just discovered it even existed ourselves, because the sun is a sun that ran out of energy. So when it runs out of energy, it turns into, that particular sun wasn't large enough to turn into a black hole or have a supernova, so it turned into something called a white dwarf. And a white dwarf is not as bright as a normal star in the sky, and because it's only in astrophysics, it's only what we call 10 seconds away from Sirius A. It's virtually impossible to see it with the naked eye without extremely sensitive technological equipment, which we were just now in more modern times able to see. But the Dogon tribe, not only did they know of Sirius A, B, and C, they knew it was a trinary star system. They knew that we had all the planets in our solar system, the sizes, the colors, the shapes of every planet in our entire solar system. And they claimed that all this knowledge was given to them by the Nomo. And the Nomo were these Anunnaki beings that had on these fish types. So it was depicted with these fish suits. And in my personal opinion, because people from ancient times always depicted with things the way that the words they had in their vocabulary, I don't think they were really fish people. They probably had on something that gave them the look of being the skin of maybe being scalish or fish, maybe whatever outfit or suit or whatever they had on the outside they had on, because they would always have this fish-looking cover in the tablets that you find, these cylinder scrolls, but they always had feet still. So they obviously had feet that walked around. They weren't just fish that flew here in a spaceship. They were people, and their faces looked just like our faces. In other words, we look like them, and they look like us. So that's why I talk about these beings from other planets and other places, because I truly do believe that they're real. And human beings, Homo sapiens sapien, which is what we all are here, in my personal opinion now, have only been here for about 200,000 years. We had cousins on this planet that predate us, going back many thousands of years. maybe even many millennia, many millions of years, but they were our cousins, and they were not Homo sapiens sapien. They were hominids, though. In other words, they were bipedal, bilateral hominids. In other words, just like me, standing up, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 feet. The skeletons have been discovered all over the planet. Bigger heads, bigger skulls means bigger brains, probably larger pineal glands, and probably more in tune with nature, probably can communicate telepathically, probably even had the capability of telekinesis, probably more in resonance with the earth, the Schumann resonant frequency of the planet and the animals and everything else. So in my opinion, they were probably more advanced than us spiritually, not technologically. And this is probably why when the Anunnaki decided to genetically modify them and create the Homo sapiens sapien, they disconnected the DNA, which is why we have junk DNA. It's not junk. That's our ancestors' DNA. It's been disconnected inside of us. We've been genetically modified, and a worship gene has been inserted into us. And the worship gene has been discovered in modern science. It's well-known, peer-reviewed science. It's not even a mystery. They were able to even turn it off and turn it on again. They were able to put a magnetic cap on a person's head and make them trigger the worship gene and claim that they, felt like they were seeing angels, and then turn it off and the angels go away. So they've worked this in the laboratories, and they've discovered the actual gene, and they've found it. It was inserted, and scientists can't say how, but they know it happened about 200,000 years ago. So, we have a very, very amazing past. But the beautiful thing about this is when they genetically modified it, something happened that they didn't. Well, one person knew, Enki. He knew about it because he was the one who did it. He put something inside of us genetically that will allow us to exceed the point we were prior to the modification. But it's almost like when you have a baby, the baby has to learn how to put its head up, then it's got to learn how to roll over, then it's got to learn how to crawl, then it's got to learn how to walk, and then it's got to learn how to run. It's a process. But we have the capability not only running, we have the capability of flying. And that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. A lot of the stuff you hear talking about with the, these beings and genetic modification and everything else and the ancient history, it tends to seem to be depressing and want to make you feel like, oh, I'm just here to be a slave. Were we created to be slaves? Yes, it even says that in the modern day Bible. Adam and Eve were created to toil the land and tend the garden. That's a slave. It says that's what you were created to do. From day number 1, boom, you were a slave. But how can we ascend past that? How can we break through that? And that's what we're going to go over tonight, because I truly do believe every single one of us in here has the power inside of us to excel far beyond where the people that came here and genetically modified us and mined this planet for resources and everything else. They knew our potential. They knew our potential was crazy. And this is why we are tapping into this information now. One more ancient thing before I go into some of this stuff here. At the Tower of Babel incident, which goes back to the Sumerian tablets. The Tower of Babel is not the Babylonian epic from the Bible. It predates all of that. Enki is Yahweh in the modern day Bible, but in the predating Sumerian tablets, which predated by 6,000 years, it's not Enki, it's Enlil. So in the modern day Bible, it's Yahweh. In the ancient tablets, it's actually Enlil, the brother of Enki. He goes away because they always go away from time to time. These people travel all over the place. He comes back, but when he comes back, he's in that region of Mesopotamia, and the human beings are building a tower into the heavens. This is well documented in the modern day Bible. This tower, some people may argue that it was a spaceport, or it was just a building, it was a replica of something they saw these Anunnaki people building. Whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. Human beings that all spoke the same language and all looked the same were coming together in peace and unity and building something to achieve a goal, and they're doing it all in oneness. And this entity comes back in the modern Bible named Yahweh, and the ancient tablets is Enlil, also known as Satan, the Lord of Eden in some ancient texts, by the way. And he sees this and he goes, oh man, whatever mankind sets its heart to do, they will achieve it. And what does he do next? He destroys the building. He destroys the tower. And then he says, my seed shall not abide in man forever. His years shall be 120. And that's in the ancient tablets. And so what he did was that's when the genetic modification of our lifespans came into play. Before then, human beings were living for thousands and thousands of years. And at that moment, we were genetically modified, and 2 telomere caps were put on the end of chromosome number 2. And chromosome number 2 was then fused. And this has been now peer-reviewed science, discovered in modern science labs all over the world, that this has happened. And it happened about 200,000 years ago, just as the tablets say, but they can't figure out who did it. Well, we know who did it because it's spelled out and it's etched into stone who did it. But they shortened our lifespan and then spread people out all over the planet and confused the languages, changed the languages, keep everybody away from each other, change their languages, separate every single body, and then keep that divide and conquer system in place, which is still in place today. That is not a all-knowing, all-loving God, creator of the universe. The creator of the universe has no interest in knocking down towers and spreading people all over the planet, in my personal opinion. There's a creator of this universe, but I believe that creator is on the outside. And from over the 1,000 texts, tablets, Sumerian cylinder scrolls, and seals, and ancient books that I've read to date, there is no book directly authored by the creator of this universe. And if anybody tells you there is, in my opinion, they're just making it up. They're just making it up, okay? Everything that's been discovered has been written by a man, except for one text that claimed to have been written by the original author, and that's the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. He claimed that he wrote the Emerald Tablets. He didn't use a scribe. That's the only text I ever found that said that a scribe wasn't used to write the information. And ironically, when you look in the Emerald Tablets, which is one of the reasons why I had to write the book, everything that Jesus says in the New Testament is an identical copy of what Thoth said in the Emerald Tablets 36,000 years ago. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So either Thoth is Jesus or Yeshua, that's his real name, because Jesus means hail Zeus. So either he is Yeshua and found a way to come back through an in vitro fertilization, or Jesus was what? One of his students. Because when Jesus left the Bible at the age of 12, if you look at the Holy Gospel of 12, he went to Egypt, and I went to the house in Egypt where he lived in Coptic Cairo. It's still there. It's a shrine. Even the bed he slept in is still there in the underground little pit area that they had where they used to hide and sleep with him and his mom at night. Their names are etched into the stone there in that building, and it's still there. It's like a museum in a way now. And then he went to Tibet to learn Reiki healing with his hands, and then he went to India to learn the mystic arts, all the way back teaching reincarnation. Which is primarily what the fundamental basis of the Bible really truly is, before they accidentally on purpose mistranslated it. So the universe runs on natural law. This is a big thing we're going to talk about, a lot of law, okay, because this law is according to Thoth the Atlantean, or Tahuti, whatever you want to call him, your daring name to him, is binding, immutable conditions that govern the consequences of behavior. So we're going to talk tonight a little bit about the principle of mentalism. Well, a lot about mentalism, because that's primarily what this talk is about, mentalism and how to do manifesting. But it's going to brush over the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of gender. So we're going to touch on these topics, not going specifically only into a principle lecture, but going into the mechanics of this scientifically. What I plan to do tonight is take you into a lot of initial science before I get into the end part where I'm talking about how to utilize this science in your life. One of the things I pride myself on doing is I like to take away all the magic and mysticism out of what's going on. I think that quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and spirituality work together hand in hand. And then when you try to break them apart, you lose the full effect of it. You lose the full understanding of it. And as I was talking to the brother earlier, Rich, it's like, a lot of the stuff we talk about sounds like hocus pocus. And truly, that's not the case. It's real physics-backed information. When you hear people talking about getting downloads, and you hear people talking about channeling information, you hear people talking about all these different types of things that they're experiencing, there's an underlying basis to that in the quantum world that proves it's actually real and it could happen. We're going to kind of talk about now the principle of mentalism, because all is mind and the universe is mental. The universe is a mind. And we're going to look at that when we get into the as above, so below. The universe itself is a mind, and everything occurs and everything exists in this third dimension because we've willed it into existence. Okay? We willed, well, Brother Rich, he willed this into existence. We're all here now, right? We're sitting here. People came from all over the country to come to this event, and I'm standing up here now talking to you because it first became a thought in his mind, and then from that thought on the consciousness platform, it then turned into a two-dimensional construct where he probably wrote it down or typed it into his phone, or the text message he sent me saying, hey, would you like to come out to New York? That's a two-dimensional platform. And then from there, we create a third-dimensional reality in the physical form. And now we're here, okay? Everything in the third dimension happens that way, even physical items, okay? This microphone was a thought in somebody's mind. They thought about it. I want to be able to project my voice a specific kind of way, and this is how I envision this thing would look if I were to speak into it. Then what happened? He took it from there, whoever it was, or he or she, put it into a two-dimensional platform, drew it on a piece of paper, maybe even gave it to a CAD designer if it's in more modern times, a computer-assisted design. That's still two-dimensional, even though it's on a computer. Looking 3D is still 2D. And then you do what? You now take it from the two-dimensional platform and you give it to an engineer. The engineer takes it and does what? Converts a two-dimensional image into a three-dimensional physical object that you can touch in the real world, manipulate, hold, move around, and everything else. We manifested this microphone into reality. And we have the power to do this every single day, everywhere, at every single time. But we take these kind of manifestations for granted. Oh, everything's just here. No, it's here because we created it. We manifested it from thought. Everything in this third dimension that you're seeing, that we're experiencing in this as a human being on this planet, there are things that are quote unquote man-made, all manifestations of thought. That's thought power turning into three-dimensional reality. And we take it for granted and we think that we're limited and don't realize it doesn't have to be a microphone. Why can't it be something else that I need? Maybe I need a vacation. Maybe I need a raise. Maybe I need a new job. Maybe I need a car. Maybe I need a house. Maybe I need a spouse. That's, it's just so many things you can manifest other than just physical, other than just material things. But we take it for granted because we don't realize the power in us. Nikola Tesla said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries in existence. That's a powerful statement right there. He's talking about combining the physical and the non-physical. He's talking about combining the unseen with the seen. Really like what I'm talking about, a unified form of physics where you begin to understand the underlying basis of how reality works and combining it with your spiritual life so that you understand how to actually utilize that quantum physics and the quantum mechanics, because we are quantum multidimensional beings. So all things in all universes move according to law, and the law which regulates the movement of the planets is no more immutable than the law which regulates the material expressions of man. One of the greatest of all cosmic laws is that which is responsible for the formation of man as a material being. The main objective is to reveal the workings of the law which connect man the material and man the spiritual. The connecting link between the material man and the spiritual man is the intellectual man, for the mind partakes of both the material and the immaterial qualities. The aspirant for higher knowledge must develop in the intellectual side of his nature and so strengthen his will that it is able to concentrate all powers of his being on and in the plane he desires. The great search for light, life, and love only begins in the material plane. Carried to its ultimate, its final goal is complete oneness with the universal consciousness. The foundation in the material is the first step. Then comes the higher goal of spiritual attainment. Concealing the words of Thoth are many meanings which do not appear on the surface. Light of knowledge brought to bear upon the tablets will open many new fields for thought. Read and be wise, but only if the light of your own consciousness awakens the deep-seated understanding, which is an inherent quality of the soul. Okay? That is actually from my book as part of the preface of the Emerald Tablets. So like I said before, we're talking about mentalism. Let's take a look at the mind-brain. Some of you who were at the mystery school may have seen a couple of these slides. A couple will cross over. How many people here saw the movie The Matrix? Okay. Well, the reason why they named this guy Neo is because of the neocortex, not because it was a cool name to give somebody. They're talking about, their whole movie is encoded with information. If you really sit down and break down the movie The Matrix, you begin to realize they really dropped some serious knowledge bombs. And it was actually a young black woman that wrote that movie, and then it was stolen, unfortunately, from her. She won the claim for multi-millions of dollars, but still hasn't been paid yet, unfortunately, even though Lawrence Fishburne went to bat for her, too, and the money still has not hit her account, unfortunately. But I like to use a lot of Matrix quotes because I think the Matrix goes back. She got this information from even ancient texts, which I'll show you as well. Not the whole story, but just the concepts and a lot of the esoteric messages. She was brilliant in relaying them through the ways that she did. The neocortex, which is Latin for new bark or new rind, also called the neophalum, is part of the brain in mammals. It is the outer layer of the cerebral hemisphere and made up of 6 layers, labeled 1 through 6. The neocortex is part of the cerebral cortex and the archaeocortex and the paleocortex, which are cortical parts of the limbic system in humans. It is involved in higher functions such as sensory perception, generation of motor commands, spatial reasoning, conscious thought, and language, and you thought it was just a name. So this is, the universe is mental. We are all Neos. We are all here. We're all sent here to save ourselves. There is no magic sky daddy with a magic wand coming to save you, because you are the savior. Every single one of us is a savior. You can choose to walk out of here today and you can help somebody. You became that person's savior. The power of becoming a savior is in every single one of us. And that's why in the more religious text, more modern day text, it actually says you're supposed to do greater works than I. But people forget about that part. They want to kick their feet up and watch the world burn and wait for this magical rapture to occur. Yes. So we're living in a fractal holographic universe. My research has really taken me down this path, and some of you have maybe heard me talk about this, so I will talk about it briefly because I think it's an integral part of this lecture. Some people here may have not heard about it. I really do believe this because now after looking at all the research and all the material and everything that I've dug into on the deepest level, scientifically and spiritually and esoterically and metaphysically, all the people I've talked to all around the world, all these different sages and all these bushmen and everything else, they're all saying that this world is sleepy time or a dream world and doesn't really exist at all. And that it's a part of the process of us to get to the next level. And as they continue to tell me this, I said, man, is there anything that I can really find that I can sink my teeth into? And more science started coming out showing that we're living in a light matrix. We are living in an actual matrix of light. Space, distance, locality, separation is all an illusion. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, because it's important for you to understand this when you try to access the power that's in your body and understand how to manipulate it and use it for your benefit. When we hear someone mention the Matrix, our minds instantly think of the famous movie, a movie trilogy that sparked a lot of philosophical and metaphysical questions. In the movie, Neo is the archetype of a savior that has returned from the dead with superpowers. Very similar to the Christian story of Jesus, Neo was prophesied to come and save the world. He was a messiah of sorts. The interesting thing is Neo's superpower is all based on his level of consciousness. What does it mean to be born again? It doesn't mean that you got to get dunked in a tub of water and all this kind of stuff and beg somebody for your forgiveness. No, it means that you've taken your level of consciousness from here to here. And when you can look back and see this, the way you used to think and the things you used to do and recognize there was a lower level of consciousness, you've been born again. And you can be born again many levels, okay? Interestingly enough, the term the Matrix comes from much older religious texts. They didn't just make up the name the Matrix. The Matrix first appears in 1312 BCE in the Torah and was verbally handed down to Moses. This information later made its way into the Old Testament of the modern day Bible, which was written over 1,000 years later in the 6th century BCE. A lot of people tend to think that the Bible was written in real time, but it wasn't. The Bible is a collection of about 15 different texts and scriptures and cylinder scrolls that were discovered over many thousands of years and then more recently put together into a quote-unquote book. Nobody sat down and said, I'm going to write me a Bible, just so you can just know that, okay? But in some of these texts, we have here the word the matrix. The term the matrix can be located in 5 separate verses in the King James Bible, but hardly anyone has ever realized it. Exodus 13:12, Exodus 13:15, Exodus 34:19, Numbers 32:12, and Numbers 18:15. Exodus 13:11 through 12 is a very I've backed up that word there. Gives us insight into the meaning of the matrix. The verse reads as follows: And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto thee and to thy fathers, and shall give thee, that thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all that openeth the matrix, and every firstling that cometh a beast with thou hast, the male shall be of the Lord's. Basically what this verse is alluding to, that in order for you to get to the next level, it's an allegory, but in order to get to the next level, you gotta be born, because the matrix, according to the Bible, is a womb. And the only way to come out of the womb is you gotta be born again consciously. You gotta make it to the next level. And every man that gets to that next level consciously will exit the matrix. If you remember that scene, that famous scene in the movie The Matrix, I think you even have it on here, one of these slides, where Neo wakes up and he's inside of this artificial womb. And he wakes up and he's flushed out because why? He's got to the next level. He's realized that everything was fake. And he's out above that now. So he's now been literally born again into what they call the real world. So the odds that we're living in base reality are probably trillions to 1. there are most likely an infinite number of realities, all created by an ancestor civilization. So we're here talking about ancestors a lot today, and I think that we are in an ancestor simulation, in my personal opinion. Our entire universe could be the science project of a student in a totally different universe, or maybe a divine program running on a supercomputer from an advanced being. We could even be living inside a one-cell biological entity. There's so many different things it could be. I'm not going to go through this entire 2 paragraphs. There's a little bit I took out of my book. But the main thing is that what we're calling reality is exactly what a lot of the religious texts say it is, a creation. But what I'm trying to say to you is, what is the method of the creation? I don't believe that it's somebody with a magic wand that just wished things into existence. I think that this creation, the method used behind this, is extremely technical. Advanced, super advanced technology. I think it's quantum computing. I believe that it's on another level that we can't even perceive at this moment. And I believe it's on such a vast scale that its size escapes our perception because we're fully immersed in it. And what do I mean by we're living in a light matrix? What kind of proof can I provide you to say that we're living inside of a light matrix? Well, let's talk a little bit about fractals first. What is a fractal? Because I say it's a fractal holographic matrix. A fractal is a curve or geometric figure which each part has the same statistical characteristic as the whole. Fractals are useful in modeling structures such as eroded coastlines and snowflakes, in which similar patterns reoccur progressively at smaller scales, and in describing partly random or chaotic phenomena such as crystal growth, fluid turbulence, and galaxy formation. So through fractals, you can create everything from a galaxy to a tiny rock. Crystals, or even a single piece of sand, grain of sand. So fractals start to explain why we have as above, so below, because when you look at a hologram, if you take out the smallest piece of a hologram and analyze it, you'll see that the entire picture is in the smallest piece of the hologram. The only thing you lose is some resolution, okay? And so you begin to see that same thing with the. So that's it, just a quick idea to give you an example of how fractals kind of work. Now, who knew about these fractals? Well, the Dogon tribe knew about these fractals. They actually created art called Adinkra codes, which were based off of fractal holography, okay? And not only did they know about it, but they made clothing, they put it in their masks, they use it on everything. And it was just more recently discovered that the Dogon tribe had complete knowledge of fractal holography and had passed it down from generation to generation utilizing art, which we're going to take a look at. So at the top, you're looking at Adinkra codes on the left and at the bottom. So the top, left, and the bottom are different Adinkra codes. Each one of those codes transform into 3-dimensional mathematical equations, and they're still in mathematics today called Adinkras. On the top right, on the top left, I'm sorry, so I'm facing, so on the top, my right, is the Adinkra code on my right, and at the bottom. On the top left is a scientific version of the Adinkra code in mathematics in supersymmetry. Now, Professor James S. Gates, which we're going to talk about here, he's the one that discovered these Adinkra codes in modern times and discovered that they really do exist. Professor James S. Gates, Jr. is an American theoretical physicist who works on supersymmetry, supergravity, and superstring theory. He retired from the physics department at the University of Maryland, College of Computer, Mechanical, and Natural Sciences in 2017, and he's now the Ford Foundation Professor of Physics at Brown University. He was the University of Maryland Regents Professor and served on the former President Barack Obama's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. So I think this guy might know a little bit about what he's talking about, okay? So he discovered these Adinkra codes are real. Not only are they real, but they govern our reality. So if you could play this and turn the volume up a little bit. I can play from here? Okay.
New York City is March 7th.
Well, partly it's taken to these very strange images that are behind your head right now. These are pictures of equations. I've been, for the last 15 years, trying to answer the kinds of questions that my colleagues here have been raising. And what I've come to understand is that there are these incredible pictures that contain all the information of a set of equations that are related to string theory. And it's even more bizarre than that, because when you then try to understand these pictures, you find out that buried in them are computer codes, just like the type that you find in a browser when you go surf the web.
You're saying your attempt to understand the fundamental operations of nature leads you to a set of equations that are indistinguishable from the equations that drive search engines and browsers on our computers.
That is correct. So,
wait, I have to just be silent for a minute here.
That's Neil Tyson DeGrasse.
So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos.
Into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
It's not just sort of resembles computer code. You're saying it is computer code.
It's not even just is computer code, it's a special kind of computer code that was invented by a scientist named Claude Shannon in the 1940s. That's what we find very, very deeply inside the equations that occur in string theory and in general in systems that we can say are supersymmetric. Some of those codes are showing on the screen behind you right now. They don't look like codes, but these pictures, which we call adinkras, are graphical representations of sets of equations that are based on codes. That in the description of our universe, that is a supersymmetrical universe, which we were going to test in the LHC. If you believe that description, I can show you the presence of these codes. That's my statement.
Do you have any predictions in your idea?
It's New York City.
So I can keep going on with that. So, we don't have a lot of time, but as you can see, what I'm talking about here. So this is just one aspect of proving that this is a creation used off of advanced technology, and as above, so below. We ourselves are now using those same exact computer codes. Why? Because those computer codes are inside of us, and we're just replicating what's already here at a higher level, at a higher dimension. We literally are the creators of our own destiny, and we're accessing this information directly from space-time and replicating it just like the quote-unquote God of the universe, but only on our scale. So we really, let me go back to this. Play this video right here real quick. Thank you. I want you to pay.
Could mere mathematics create an entire universe?
A whole universe we've already created ourselves.
What does broccoli have in common with the Big Bang? And what does it have to do with a video game like No Man's Sky or Minecraft? One thing. All are based on simple formulas that create infinite complexity. In 1980, the mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot publicized a simple formula: Z maps to Z squared plus C. But you don't apply it only once. You take the result and feed it back into the formula. Do this often enough and a pattern emerges, the Mandelbrot set. The more you repeat this calculation, the more complex details are revealed. Ultimately, you could repeat this infinitely, the only limitation being the processing power of your computer. The patterns one can find here look strangely familiar and widespread. Mandelbrot gave them the name fractals. Fractal patterns seem so familiar because these shapes are omnipresent in nature. The most important characteristic of fractals is their so-called self-similarity. Look at a fern leaf. It is made out of smaller and smaller copies of itself. The same is true for Romanesco broccoli. The branching patterns of trees follow this principle, as do the courses of rivers. Lightning spreads into smaller and smaller branches, each sharing the same features as the main bolt. But also man-made structures organize themselves into fractal patterns without us actually planning them this way. Here is a map of all the roads leading to Rome, and a map of the internet. It's especially fascinating that even your own body shows many fractal characteristics. Thanks to its fractal structure, your lungs have a surface area of over 100 square meters, enabling them to efficiently absorb oxygen. This oxygen is then transported through your fractal bloodstream into your brain, in which the neurons are interconnected fractally. Every thought you think, even right now at this very moment, is a cascade of electric impulses traveling through the fractal network in your brain. This is a simulation of dark matter in our universe. The visible section is 10 million light years across. Even on these scales, you can find the same fractal branching patterns as in the neurons of your brain, in rivers, or in lightning. All this complexity is based on simple feedback processes and on formulas like the Mandelbrot set. With today's computers, we can take these fractal formulas and add a third dimension. With simple math, beautiful 3D worlds can be created. As it turns out, the easiest way to simulate a world as realistic as possible is to use fractal formulas. The first completely computer-generated movie scene in a feature film was the fractal animation of a planet in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Fascinating.
The Lucasfilm group responsible for this was later acquired by Steve Jobs. From this, he created Pixar, thus revolutionizing Hollywood. Their animated movies look so realistic because the generated landscapes are based on the fractal principle of self-similarity. Progress has continued, and today these elaborate and costly movie scenes have evolved into real-time walkable game worlds, like the landscapes of Minecraft. Their origin has not changed, mathematical formulas that just need to be fed with variables. The most impressive simulation of an entire universe has now been created by a small team of 15 indie developers. The game No Man's Sky is probably the most complex and the largest game world ever created, and it fits on a single DVD. Every player starts exploring on a randomly chosen planet in the game's universe. The player's starting coordinates are the variable that is put into the game's sophisticated but still simple formulas. The result creates the whole visible game world in real time. It would be impossible to store all of the details using traditional methods. You would need entire data centers to store the data of the roughly 18 quintillion true-to-scale planets, together with their unique ecosystems. It doesn't matter if it's a whole planet, a spaceship, a tree, a rock, or a single blade of grass. Every detail is the fractal result of a mathematical formula. So, one of the most realistic and complex simulation of our cosmos emerges from nothing but mere mathematics. And no matter where you look around in nature and our man-made reality, you encounter fractal patterns all over. Don't you think it's time to consider the possibility that fractals are a fundamental element of our cosmos?
It can even be taken to another level when you're analyzing video games. Video games talk about reincarnation. We've duplicated everything in this realm from basically as above, so below, from a higher level to this level here. In a video game, you have multiple lives. So when you're trying to, in this world right now, as us as flesh and blood beings, we're trying to acquire enough knowledge and wisdom and understanding that, most of us here, if you understand reincarnation, that you won't come back without a memory, and that you can even incarnate at will, like the Atlanteans or Thoth talked about. In a video game, you have to beat levels, and when you beat certain levels of a game, you get to the next level of consciousness or the next level of the game, another dimension. But if you die, you then have to come back and live again in another life and get it. So you get a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. Just reincarnation built into video games, the same exact thing. And why is this stuff important with manifestation? It's important to understand, in my opinion, the fundamental underlying basis of how the universe works so that you can actually really tap into what's going on. And if you don't know how it truly really works, if you're just guessing at it, then your results are going to be poor at best, your manifestation results. So this first part of this lecture is just trying to get you to understand the fundamental basis of how the universe actually really truly does work so that you can learn how to tap into it the right way. So I'm going down here to this one. Okay, cool. Some of you may have seen this last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever, but we're talking about the double slit experiment in quantum mechanics. Yes, a video. Sorry.
So, what they taught us in school isn't really the way it is, and that our senses are playing tricks on us. You just gotta wonder, what is this reality that we find ourselves in? Quantum physics says it's all just waves of information. Do I believe that? I hope so. Yikes! And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now, there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter, through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. Physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently. as though it was aware it was being watched. It was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange netherworld of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
So the fundamental basis of the experiment is telling you that matter has intelligence. Every bit of matter in this entire universe has its own intelligence, and the matter interacts with consciousness. So when a conscious observer interacts with matter and collapses it into a wave, or collapses a wave back into solid matter. Right now, something really weird is we're all here in this building. Wherever your house is located, it doesn't exist as a physical structure if you're not looking at it. It only exists as a wave. Everything in the entire universe only exists as electromagnetic waves until consciousness collapses those waves into things that we call solid matter. Period. That's now not even a question anymore. Okay? When you're not looking, it's not there. In a video game, when you need to get to the next level, the screen appears as you need it. You can't see all the screens on a video game at the same time. It takes time to move through those different sections, and as you move through, the rest of it appears. If you go back, whatever you left reappears. It's the same exact way in our reality. Everything is still as above, so below, even in the technological realm. So you have to begin to realize, like, wow, everything is a wave. But what does that mean? All of us are waves. Your body, your avatar body exists as a wave. And what is a wave? A wave is light. Now we're moving into what is light. Electromagnetic waves are all light. You can't see specific light frequencies because we're only attuned to a very small range of light frequencies that we can observe. But right now, if you were able to see in X-rays, infrared, ultraviolet, and all the other spectrums that exist, this room would look totally different to you. You might even see other people or other beings walking around here. We're only limited to a very small amount that we're able to physically see with these tools that we have connected to our brains, okay? And everything exists as waves. So right now, all around us and even through our bodies are electromagnetic waves of all different types, trillions of them flowing around us right now, of various different wavelengths and frequencies, that just exist all around us. And as a matter of fact, scientists now have found a way to capture, well, there's a 14-year-old scientist who actually did this first, believe it or not, about 2-3 years ago. With $14, he went to the store and bought enough equipment to capture electromagnetic waves, ambient waves, and convert them into electricity. Just like a solar panel can take sunlight, you can take electromagnetic waves and convert that into electricity and have all the free energy we need is already floating all around us, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But what this really means is that light equals intelligence. Light equals intelligence, and your body is light. You are a light being. Not only is the avatar made of light, because all the matter in your body is basically collapsed waves, but then you inhabit this vessel with your light entity, your light, your soul light, your spirit light at the same time. And you animate the avatar, but the avatar fundamental basis is light. If you take any particle out of your body and analyze it in an electron microscope and even smash it together with another particle, you'll discover the only thing you're going to emit is light. All matter is actually light slowed down, reduced to a slow vibration. That's all matter is. So, things that we think are solid matter, there's 7.5 billion people on Earth, and if I take away all the empty spaces in between your atoms, because atoms are 99.9% empty space, I can fit all 7.5 billion people into one sugar cube. All the people on the planet can fit into one sugar cube if I take away the empty spaces in between the atoms. But guys, we're not really here. I'm not even up here talking to you, I'm talking to myself. And when you're talking to somebody, you're talking to yourself. This is what it means to treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. That's what that truly does mean, which comes from the 42 laws of Matt, by the way. You know? Yeah, so that's what it really means. You literally are, we are there's only one consciousness. It has literally separated itself into trillions and trillions of entities so it can experience itself subjectively from different perspectives. Even as a blade of grass, even as a rock, even as this podium, even as this microphone. Because why? Because all atoms in the entire universe are all alive. All particles are alive. All electrons and protons are all alive. Everything is alive. We're living in a living, breathing universe. This universe is an actual functioning being. And you can see that at the smallest scale inside of your body, which each cell is its own universe. So the first ever photograph of light as both a particle and a wave was captured. This made it into physics.org, proving what I'm talking to you about, that matter exists as a solid particle, or particles that can make up a solid, something you can recognize as something or someone, and also exists as a wave. Wave-particle duality is what this is called in quantum physics, wave-particle duality. We are both waves of light, and we're also solid matter. A human being exists as both solid matter and a wave of light. This is really important for you to really, I know it's hard to wrap your mind completely around it right now, but you have to understand that you are really, truly a light being, and light has intelligence. Every single particle in your body has intelligence inside of it. The word of the week is electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum describes all of the wavelengths of light, both seen and unseen. Light is a wave of alternating electric and magnetic fields. The propagation of light isn't much different than the waves crossing an ocean, like another wave. Light has a few fundamental properties that describe it. One is its frequency, measured by hertz, which counts the number of waves that pass by a point in 1 second. Another closely related property is wavelength, the distance from the peak of one wave to the peak of the next. These two attributes are inversely related. The larger of the frequency, the smaller the wavelength, and vice versa. This is now we're talking about why is light important? Because we're talking about getting on high frequencies now. We're moving into frequency. When people say you need to be vibrating at high frequency, I only like people with high frequency. I don't like high frequency communication. I don't like high frequency conversations. But people say it, but do they really understand what it truly means? They maybe think, oh, positivity. Yes, it is positivity. But there's a whole other realm behind that positivity where you're taking your light vessel and your body to a high frequency vibration so that you can vibrate at a higher, oscillate at a higher wavelength. And a higher wavelength oscillation is a very close-in, fast oscillation versus a cosine wave of a low frequency is a very slow, undulating wave that has more space and gap in between it. And the reason why this is important is because the universe only understands high frequency communication. When you're trying to operate in the law of attraction, which we're going to get into shortly, you need to be going power to power. You're coming with weak, low vibrational energy, the universe falls on dead ears. And that's what we're going to talk about, how to pray later on and how come a lot of prayers don't get answered. This is the visible light spectrum right here. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. That's all we can see. And a mixture of these. Just mix them together, and that's the best that we can do right now, okay, as a Homo sapien in this universe. But there are so many other waves floating around that we just don't have the capability of seeing. The electromagnetic waves your eyes detect, which is visible light, oscillate between 790 terahertz. That's several hundred trillion times a second. The wavelengths are roughly the size of a large virus, 390 to 750 nanometers. This is real tiny. We're seeing nothing, guys. Our brain interprets the various wavelengths of light as different colors. Red is the longest wavelength and violet the shortest. When we pass sunlight through a prism, we see that it's actually composed of many wavelengths of light. The prism creates a rainbow by redirecting each wavelength out at a slightly different angle, or angel. We're living in a universe of light that is comprised of angles. Everything is based on angles, which are really, quote unquote, angels. This is what we see here. This 10 to the 15 in the middle with the color ratio here to the, to your far left. That's all we got. We can't see gamma rays. We can't see infrared, radio, microwaves. We can't, it's just, we're very limited in what we can see. This is why the third eye is so important. This is why I'm going over this. You need to be able to see without your eyes. You have two eyes to see and one eye, you have two eyes to look and one eye to see, I should say. Okay, and that's your third eye, and that's what we're going to have to learn how to utilize as our spiritual antenna. That's right. This image is from the Very Large Baseline Array, the VLBA, which shows the galaxy M33, what it would look like if you could see in radio waves. This image maps atomic hydrogen as the gas galaxy, as gas in the galaxy. I'm sorry. The different colors map velocities in the gas. Red shows us that gas is moving away from us. Blue is moving toward us. So you can see, based on the coloration in this image, the bottom section of it is moving toward us and away from us, and the top is moving toward us. So it's probably rotating in some kind of weird way in space-time. I thought this was kind of interesting, though. This is just for laughs. But yeah, elongated skull, maybe. I don't know. Just reaching there. But anyway, scientists discovered how to turn light into matter. Okay, this is what I talk about in my book. Thoth talked about this in the Emerald Tablets 36,000 years ago. He talked about the fact that he had the capability of turning sound and light into solid matter, and he would even manifest blocks of stone into existence through light technology, wavelength technology, which is light. Okay, we just now rediscovered how to do this. This is article was written, I think, in 2015. The Imperial College London physicists have discovered how to create matter from light, a feat thought impossible when the idea was first theorized 80 years ago. In just one day, over several cups of coffee in a tiny office in the Imperial's blacklit physics laboratory, 3 physicists worked out a relatively simple way to physically prove a theory first devised by scientists, Brayton Wheeler, in 1934. Brayton Wheeler suggested that it should be possible to turn light into matter by smashing together only 2 particles of light, which are the photons, to create an electron and a positron, the simplest method of turning light into matter ever predicted. The scientists had been investigating unrelated problems in fusion energy when they realized that what they were working on could be applied to the Brayton-Wheeler theory. The breakthrough was achieved in collaboration with a fellow theoretical physicist from the Max Planck Institute of Nuclear Physics, who happened to be visiting the Imperial. So you see here that they accidentally discovered how to turn light into solid matter. And what does that have to do with us? What did I say before? We are what? Made of light. And you want to manifest things into reality? Light manifested this solid matter. Your light vessel manifested this computer, this podium. It all correlates with one another. You have to understand how the universe works, so that when you go into your manifestation mindset, you understand how to utilize the science behind what you're trying to manifest to help it manifest into your life more appropriately. Contemporary science tells us that the universe is made up of energy, matter, and light. Those would be what alchemists called sulfur, salt, and mercury, respectively. According to Einstein's equation E equals mc squared, energy and matter can be transformed into one or another through the constant of light. In alchemy, sulfur and salt are transformed into one another through the intermediary of mercury. It looks like if you took the little c out of the equation from Einstein's theory, in Einstein's equation, if it really stood for consciousness instead of light, there would be no difference at all between physics and alchemy. Let us assume that consciousness is the light in that case, and the Emerald Tablet for the 21st century would kind of read something like this. Truly without hype, religious exploitation, or commercial consideration, you can experience higher truths. You are as much a part of the material as you are of the mental. You are as much a part of the mental as you are the material. In order to accomplish the miracles of light, and just as all things come from this light, through concentration of consciousness, so do all created things originate from this light through the transformation of thought. Its father is energy, its mother is matter. Spectrum carries it in its belly. Its nurse is the earth. It is the origin of all concentration of the whole universe. Its inherent strength is perfected if it is the materialized. Separate matter from imagination, the subtle from the gross, gently in deepest meditation, the light rises from both earth to heaven and returns again to earth, thereby containing within itself the powers of both mental and the material. Thus you will obtain the light of the whole universe. All darkness will be illuminated to you. This is the greatest force of all powers, because it overcomes every mental thing and penetrates every material thing. In this way, the universe was created. From this comes many wondrous manifestations, because this formula, therefore, it deals with all 3 parts of reality and shows us the underlying relationship between energy, matter, and light. Now we can completely basically explain the fountain of consciousness. I think energy, matter, and light are the true Trinity, in my personal opinion. That is the Holy Trinity. Physics today, mapping magnetite in the human brain. So now we're going to move into how light interacts with the magnetite in the brain. In your brain are billions of magnetite crystals in every single one of our brains. we, Homo sapiens sapien, have kind of been disconnected from being able to realize it or feel it or utilize it in a way that a lot of animals still utilize it. Like turtles, and they come back to their nesting grounds, birds flock south in the winter and so forth. A lot of animals use this crystal not only to navigate, but also to sense changes in the planet. Like I said in my other lecture, if you're looking at a situation where we have a tsunami coming inland, you never see wild animals dead in the water. Why is that? How come you never see wild animals dead? They knew it was coming long before it even got there. They already went to the hills and the mountains. But the people, the humans, we stand out there and we take selfies and we go live on Instagram and the tsunami's coming and we get swept away. Why is that? We've lost our connection with nature. We've lost our connection through certain things that have been done to us, but we can regain that through higher levels of consciousness. So our magnetite crystals are there, and scientific studies have been done showing that they still function when they put a person inside of a laboratory with a cap on to detect his sensory perception where the magnetite crystals are located. They're actually located primarily in the brainstem and the cerebellum. And when they used a rotating magnetic field around this man, they were able to sense a change in the magnetite crystals, sensing the orientation of magnetic north in his brain. So we still have the capability, but we've been disconnected from even thinking that it even exists. Some people have higher levels of intuition than others, and some people can sense these things better than others. A lot of our ancestors had the capability of sensing these magnetic fields. A lot of the temples around the world, these ancient temples, are built directly on top of magnetic hotspots. How did they know that? Okay, a lot of them, actually majority of almost every single one of them is built on top of a magnetic hotspot. They had the capability of doing things like finding water in the desert, knowing exactly where to dig and everything else. They had these capabilities. We've kind of relinquished them due to the fact that we've given up on the belief that they exist. Well, there's something called the neural correlates of consciousness inside of your human brain. And these are three gigantic neurons that are basically in charge of your awareness level. And researchers at the Institute for Brain Science discovered three giant neurons. One of them is projected across the cortex like a giant crown of thorns. Sound familiar? I think the crown of thorns really was this neural network that wraps around the head in a way that allows you to obtain consciousness. That's just my personal opinion. These neurons connect to the claustrum. The claustrum, is like the conductor of an orchestra. It coordinates inputs, outputs, then helps to download consciousness. It is located on each hemisphere and is in a highly dense region, and it's responsible for perception, movement, vision, and hearing. Okay. Here's an old comic strip here of Iron Man. Why is that important? Because the iron in your blood is magnetic. So when you have low iron, you lose a lot of your magnetism, and it causes you to get ill and sick. We need magnetism to live. Not only is every atom in our body electromagnetic frequency on the frequency scale, but we also need actual iron inside of our blood. This is an ironic image here of Iron Man fighting Magneto. But this at the bottom is actually a piece of magnetite crystal. That's what's inside of your brain, connected to specific neurons in the cerebellum and the brain stem. You actually have crystals inside of your body. This is why we interact with crystals so well. Everybody here's got these crystal stands, and why people love crystals and flock to crystals, because they're communicating with your brain stem. They're, like a person out here thankfully gave me this beautiful crystal right here, and as I was going through, like I said, the crystal has to choose you. So as I was going through, this crystal chose me, and they created this beautiful piece of work here. I forget the exact name of their crystal shop, but I did give them a good shout out online. But this crystal chose me, and it's interacting with me because I have crystals in my body. Can brain waves interfere with radio waves? Not likely. Brain waves are too slow and so weak. But radio waves and brain waves are both forms of electromagnetic radiation. So again, not only is your body made of light, but your thoughts are made of what? Light. You getting the point I'm trying to make here? Even your thoughts are nothing but light. Your thoughts are literally light that can be measured. So when you think something every single day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you are emitting light waves directly out of your skull that are traveling out into the universe. This is why no matter who you are or where you are, if somebody says that you're getting, information from the Akashic records or they're getting a download, the information is already out there. So it's quite possible that it's actually happening. And we're going to talk a little bit about how DNA allows this to happen, how DNA allows you to get downloads, and how you can put all the information that exists or that ever will exist, all the knowledge, all the answers, all the problems, all the solutions, all the technology, whatever you want and you can even dream of, already exists in space-time. And why? Because it's all light waves that are being stored on this gigantic universal hard drive. Hang in there, guys. Know the heat's got some of y'all hurting right now.
Emotive is kind of this wild technology. It's a way for you to control things with your mind. It has all sorts of new use cases, and I'm here at their offices today to get into it a little bit more.
This goes behind your ears, and so you want your hair to be out of the way.
Okay.
And so we just put this on like that.
On the brain crown, okay.
And then this goes behind the ear, so we'll just slide this down.
Okay. So this is my brain right now.
This is your brain right now.
Oh my gosh.
In real time.
This is wild.
It's pretty wild. And so what you're seeing is the localized activity right now and the concentration of activity. So if there's a particular area that there's a huge amount of synchronization and activity, then you'll see it light up. So right now we're seeing a lot of activity there in the frontal and then parietal occipital. So parietal occipital
because I'm watching this.
Yeah, so we can look at facial expressions. So we can tell if you're blinking, you're winking, looking left and right, furrowing your eyebrows, raising them in surprise, smiling, clenching your teeth because you might be nervous. So all of those things we can detect very, very easily.
Emotive has been prototyping its wireless EGG technology for the past few years. Proven in the research sector, they are now developing a consumer product for market.
So this is a really simple use case scenario where the idea is I can just will this car to drive forward just with my thoughts.
There you go. There you go.
The way that the detections work is that you show the machine learning algorithms how you think about driving the car forward. So
right, I mean, when you're actually wearing it, do you have to think stop?
No, I have to just try and get back out of that.
You have
zone.
to just stop thinking.
Yeah, you just got to
it.
stop thinking about it and get back to some other sort of normal.
Oh, how weird! But
when you're like the thing about it is it's hard to get into the zone, and so when you're in the zone, you kind of stay in the zone for a little while longer.
But what do you mean in the zone? Like, do you think go, go, go?
No, I actually visualize. So when I'm training, I'm visualizing a cube moving into the distance.
You're actually, so you're training your brain to think of movement. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm usually, the machine learning algorithms are picking up what my brain looks like when I'm thinking about moving this little cube into the distance. That trigger is sent to the car and it drives it forward.
What can people do with this other than drive a car with their mind? What are the other
there
uses?
are so many different use cases, but there's also other detections that we can glean from the device. So emotional states, for example, we can use it for neurofeedback, for market research, for neuromarketing. There's a whole range of...
Yeah.
So guys, light emanating from your brain can move objects in the third dimension. Now obviously that's augmented by direct connection through that wireless headset that she had on. But I truly believe even that our ancestors had the capability of doing things like that a lot more without having to have an augmented reality. However, the fact that your light waves, your thought waves, can be then taken into a digital medium and then utilized to move around physical objects, I'm just trying to show you the power that your mind truly has. Because people keep limiting themselves to thinking what they can and can't really do. Your mind literally can move mountains. And this is a representation of as above, so below, from the technological world to the actual physical or spiritual world. You see on the bottom the tree roots, at the top you see what looks like a computer circuit. We are directly woven in from molecular biology into digital technology. And we're set up, our bodies are set up, and even our brainwaves are set up to work on both scales. We're extremely multifunctional and multidimensional. A scientist observing an atom is actually a group of atoms observing itself. That's what it is. Okay? I'm just a group of atoms standing up here in front of you in a certain specific, formation. trying to observe the atoms that create this and the atoms that create that. I mean, it's really, if you think about it, you got to really understand and every single atom has been here since the beginning of time. There's nothing new here. Not one thing is new. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at that. Obviously, as above, so below. This is the universe, and this is a brain cell. We just saw that a little bit ago in one of those diagrams in fractals. But if you take a look at the fact that your DNA is a storage medium, and it stores digital bits of zeros and ones. So scientists found out that a single gram of DNA can store 5.5 petabits of data, which is around 700 terabytes of data, and they've actually multiplied that since I put this out to 433 petabytes. They stored 80 billion ebooks on 1 gram of DNA. So they took information from a computer and downloaded it onto DNA and then uploaded it from DNA back to the server again. So what does that tell you about your body, your DNA? You're storing data. Your body is full of data. All of your ancestors' data and your bloodline going all the way back is all inside of your body. All their memories and all that information is stored in your body. They discovered that your body can store 13.5 billion years of information. And that's around the time that the universe, according to mathematics, seemed to have came into existence. So all the matter in the entire universe and all the information in the entire universe can be stored in your entire body, which is really, really amazing. So let's just take a quick look at that before we get to the next level here. This is one of the guys who did the ebook.
We are producing a lot more data than we're capable of storing today. We think that to put a dent on the problem, we need a radical new solution.
No, this is the
so we're looking at DNA as one such solution.
Now. They've passed that. This is the Microsoft.
And one of the reasons that we're using DNA is its density is orders of magnitude higher than anything that exists today. Its reliability and resiliency, and then it has relevancy. We think that as long as there are humans alive, we'll care about reading our own DNA, and that means that we'll have a storage format that will be with us that will always be relevant.
We have been working on using DNA for data storage for several years now, but the process so far has been incredibly manual. There are literally people moving around with pipettes in their hands. So the only way we're going to make DNA data storage scale up to be usable and go mainstream is by automating it. And what we've done with the project that you're going to learn more about now, is showing that it's possible to automate the entire process from bits to molecules and back to bits.
The writing process takes your data file and encodes those ones and zeros into ACs, Ts, and Gs. Those ACs, Ts, and Gs are actually what gets sent to the device itself. Every base that flows into the column incorporates itself onto a strand of DNA. So once all the DNA bases have been incorporated into the strands on the column, the strands need to be removed from the column. So we pump a chemical mixture into the column, which frees them from their solid support and pushes them into a liquid storage bottle. So once we decide to read the data off the DNA, the read master mix is applied to the DNA storage pool. That master mix prepares the DNA to be read. Now that the DNA is readable, it gets pumped into the read device, where it gets translated into ACs, Ts, and Gs sequences the computer can understand. Those sequences then get decoded back into ones and zeros. Moving into...
You guys are getting the idea that we're living inside of this avatar body that is made to be a storage device, that is made of light, that emanates light. One thing that's important to understand, though, as we're going to get into, is the fact that your brain does not create consciousness. It downloads consciousness. You're downloading consciousness on a consistent basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in a constant stream, and we're going to touch on that as well. I want you to understand this. Like I said, guys, this is maybe rudimentary, but you have to learn these basics. So we're going to go to the atom. So now you just saw that, this one, yeah, go back up to, yeah. So now you saw that you can store information on DNA in an incredible amount. But now they've discovered you can store information on one atom. So every atom in your body is a storage device. Think about that for a minute. This is how much information that's inside of your body already. Described in the Journal of Nature, physicists working at IBM research facility in California found that when the holmium atoms were placed on a special surface made of magnesium oxide, they naturally oriented themselves with a magnetic north and south pole, just like regular magnets have a pointing either straight up or straight down, and remained that way in a stable condition. What's more, they could make the atoms flip by giving them a zap with a scanning tunneling microscope that has the needle with a tip just one atom wide. We're getting really advanced. We can store information, an atom width needle, onto one atom and make that into a storage device as well. So this is why you see things coming into reality now, like we just did teleportation a few weeks ago. They teleported a few particles from Earth into space to the space station. Yeah, teleportation, like in Star Trek where you say, beam me up, Scotty. Yeah, they're doing it now. They're doing it with particles, but what's going to happen when they now begin to use this? The only thing stopping them from doing it with a biological organism is storage space. So once you have the storage space, which now DNA hard drives and atomic hard drives are going to give them, remembering every spin rate and location of your atom in your body and every position is going to be a piece of cake. Teleportating a body and teleportating things into space and back and forth, maybe even between planets, is going to be like snapping your fingers. It's not even going to be a big deal. So let's talk a little bit about quantum entanglement now. So quantum entanglement is an amazing thing because all this, you're going to see how all this ties together here as I wrap up soon. But quantum entanglement is so, so important to understand. And one day, you know, I was just walking around and I get these little things that pop in my mind. It's like you get on the same frequency as some information in space and it comes into your head. I don't think any idea is truly original. I think that we get on the frequency of existing data and we download it. That's just my opinion. And the word or the phrase parabolic down conversion came into my mind. And I was going, parabolic down conversion? What in the world is that? And it just kept coming and coming and coming. This happens to me from time to time. So I went and looked it up. Parabolic down conversion is when you take a laser and you take two electrons and you use the laser on the parabolic down conversion to phase shift the frequency of those two particles onto the same frequency, and you get them what they call entangled. And once they become entangled, they have the same spin rate up. Well, one has a spin rate up, one has a spin rate down on the same frequency. So when you flip one up, the other one flips down. When you flip one down, the other one flips up. So you can then put data on one and the data will show up on the other one instantaneously, bypassing the speed of sound if you use coding like zeros and ones. So if you had the capability of taking one atom to the one particle, of electron all the way to the other end of the universe, if you change the information in the one that's local to you, the one on the other end of the universe will change instantaneously, bypassing the speed of light. What does that mean? Distance is an illusion. Distance is there's nothing out of the range of you. There's nothing you can't achieve. There's nothing that can't be done. And I'm just telling you right now, this is proving it on the most quantum level that distance is an illusion. So we're getting close to wrapping up here, but then because I want to get into more of the metaphysical and how to utilize this, but these are a couple more things we got to go over and then we're wrapping up soon. If you could press play on
Great granddaddy of wacky quantum weirdness is entanglement. If time reversal symmetry destroys the notion of time, then entanglement crushes our experience of space. Two objects, two electrons created together, are entangled. Send one to the other side of the universe. Now, do something to one, and the other responds instantly. Instantly. So, either information is traveling infinitely fast, or, in reality, they are still connected. They are entangled. And since everything was entangled at the moment of the Big Bang, that means everything is still touching. Space is just the construct that gives the illusion that there are separate objects. Are we far enough down the rabbit hole yet?
We're all connected. Every single one of us is directly on top of this grid right now, this energetic grid that has all this divine energy flowing through it, and every single one of us is on this grid connected at every single level. And the reason why this is important and why it's important to understand quantum entanglement, because like I said before, you're receiving a stream of information on a consistent basis. Your brain is downloading consciousness. How? Through your crystal magnetite and through the those neurons that I was telling you about, which create this portal that allows this information to be captured by your avatar body, and then kind of temporally and housed and imprisoned in this avatar body, so that you can maneuver around and animate this avatar body. And the reason why this is important is because when you're trying to get into law of attraction, which we're getting into very shortly here, you have to understand your mind has to quantum entangle with the universe on the high frequency level to get the law of attraction to work for you, and that's where we're moving towards. So if you look here, some people may have heard me talk about this, but brain scans can reveal your decision 7 seconds before you actually decide. I was talking about this out there with a few people. So they took some people, put them in a laboratory, and they connected a cap to their head with electrodes on it, and they began to show them photos on the screen. And some photos were of serene scenes like roses and people kissing and, you know, children, and some scenes were horrific, like people getting killed, stabbed, and so forth. And so the human brain will create these patterns, and they were transmitting these patterns to a computer because they wanted to get a map of the brain based off of what the brain looks like digitally for an emotion. What emotion looks like this on a computer? What emotion is this on a computer? Well, what happened is the brain, after a few minutes in every single case study, started transmitting what the next image was going to be up to 7 seconds before the picture showed up on the screen, because the pictures were spaced out 10 seconds apart. This was an accidental discovery. They weren't trying to figure this out. So up to 7 seconds before something happens, you've already done something. And they can actually show the cascade of the brain waves leading up to the decision-making point that then correlates or intersects with what we consider to be real time. But we're not living in real time. We're living in a delayed third-dimensional hologram. Have you ever gone on to satellite TV and realized that if you look at something on your phone, if you happen to see a video on your phone and a video on the satellite TV, it's a different rate. One's behind, the satellite's behind, and the one on your phone is ahead. Or if you're at a bar, sometimes one is playing faster than the other one because one's cable, one's satellite. There's always an extra delay in satellite because it takes more time for that image and that data to be transmitted. Okay? If you understand this, you realize that from the outside of this realm, from wherever this universal consciousness is actually located, it's being transmitted in on specific frequencies, and your avatar body picks up on this frequency, or one of them, one of many quintillions of them or Googles of them, and that becomes a frequency that you experience the third dimension in for a short period of time. And what is the purpose of this? To transmit information back to the source. Your body uploads and downloads information. So just like we saw that you can download and upload information to the DNA through a direct connection to a computer, well, we found also that through wireless technology, the human DNA sends and receives wireless signals as well. So you transmit and receive wirelessly information directly to your DNA, and DNA, now we found out, stores memories. So you're uploading and downloading all the time without even knowing about it. This is why when you walk into a room, you can sense somebody who's having a bad day or a bad vibe. You can sense somebody being happy. You can sense different situations. We call it intuition. You're downloading information directly from that area, and you're putting it into your body, and then it's transmitting to you, and you're recognizing it as whatever you think is going on. But the thing that's powerful about this, the ability to upload and download, is the fact that when you're uploading and downloading information, you're now beginning to see how you can use that same unknown subconscious technique to be able to communicate with the universe, to be able to utilize that information to work with your brain, to work with what you're trying to attract into your life, and quantum entangle with it and get the things you want to happen in your life. They kind of say that, well, if you're up to 7 seconds in advance, what does that mean? Does free will really exist? I think it's called free won't. That's what I think. It's called free won't. There's a certain amount of what looks like might be predetermined things getting ready to happen according to this science study, but you always have the final say-so at the last minute. You can stop. You can change your mind. I can say I'm going to touch this microphone, but then I can pull my hand back at the last second. You have what I call free won't. And that's important to understand when you're trying to manifest things into your life. So I want to get into the science.
Also has a pattern.
So yes, all right, we're going to go down to this one here. Scientists concluded that the average human body contains approximately 37.5 trillion cells. Each cell generates 0.07 volts of electricity. That's 37.5 trillion cells. That's 2.63 trillion volts in one human body. Okay, so when people say, oh, I don't feel powerful, this is in your body. 2.63 trillion volts of power is inside of every single one of us right now. How do you harness that? How do you tap into that? You hear people talking about Qigong, about Qi energy. This is where they're harnessing. They're harnessing the power that's stored in each cell in their body, and they're extracting it from the cell, the upper cell layer, and utilizing it, channeling it through their body. That's what Qigong is really all about. It's not magic. It's not mystical. They're not wizards. They have now mentally tapped into the energy source that's already emanating inside of their body. This is why when you look at the Matrix movie, you see all the human beings are connected to this power grid inside of these artificial wombs. And people didn't really understand, well, you can't get no power out of a human body. Oh, yeah, you can. Imagine 7 billion people times 2.6 trillion volts. You can power a whole planet pretty easily, okay? And they probably had a lot more people than that in the movie. Drop it on down. So how do we tap into this? Let's now talk about how do we utilize all this science in our lives. The first thing is through positive affirmations, because positive affirmations will help you reprogram your DNA. DNA can be reprogrammed, okay? So right now, all of us have a preset amount of things in our DNA that kind of help make up our personalities, along with planetary and star alignments as well. Something that, not really even in here, but personalities based off of astrology, to me, is actually true. And the reason why scientifically is because when you look at the effect of gravity on embryos, which has been done and studied in the International Space Station, and also the fact that right now, as of 2012, our solar system is on the galactic equator of the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is this massive disk, like a giant frisbee. And even a frisbee has a part that you can grab onto to hold. That's the part where it bends. Well, imagine that on a galactic scale. It's trillions of miles thick. And our solar system undulates on this pattern, this frequency pattern, up and down as it goes around the entire galactic equator, the supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy. Well, around 2012, we reached the midpoint of that, what they call the galactic equator. And what's important about that, the majority of the cosmic rays that are streaming out of there are coming directly towards us and through us and affecting our DNA. So you have the cosmic rays coming from the supermassive black hole. You have specific star alignments based off the tilt of the Earth and at different times of year under which precession of the equinoxes, because all those are based off of gravitational fields, and that has a direct effect on embryo formation. So when somebody's talking about astrology, is some of it fake? Yeah, some people make up stuff for money, but is a true fundamental science behind it that people born at specific times of the year on specific days under specific gravitational fields and cosmic ray energies will develop a specific personality. It's real science. It's not crazy stuff. But positive affirmations will reprogram your DNA. This is important to understand. What you have in your body now doesn't have to stay this way. What's important about this is the fact that the majority of our ancestors have suffered some type of slavery, whether it was getting stolen from Africa or whether it was we were indigenous already here or on other continents and we were still tortured. 111 million indigenous people were killed in America over 70 years. It's called the American Holocaust. 111 million. It makes Hitler look like an angel. An angel. So where is this written about in history books in school? It's not. You have to actually go buy books about this where historians have done the work and done the studies and put out many books about this, but they're not going to teach it to you in school. So people who don't know these books exist never get them and get all the statistical data that's out there for us, but it's publicly available. But why am I bringing this up? Because this is embedded into our what? Our DNA. And epigenetic memories can be stored, according to scientists, up to 14 or 15 generations. We're barely one generation out of slavery, barely. So these hurtful feelings, these pains, these sorrowful memories, these fears and everything else that come along with it are embedded in our DNA. And it's going to take a long time to get it out, because in order for them to put religion and install religion on this planet, they had to beat, rape, and kill it into every single continent. It wasn't because it was written that, you know, people would worship and this and that. No, it was because it was literally forced, and all the languages were erased and everything else. Spanish people aren't Spanish; they're not Latinos. Unless you're from Spain, if you're living in Mexico and you're not a Latino, you're a Mayan or an Aztec. Sorry, that's not your language. But this is in the DNA, and why is this important? It's important to understand because it's going to take generations to get this out of us. So we have to begin the reprogramming process now. In order for us to manifest a better life, a better reality for not only ourselves, but for our prosperity, we have to start to reprogram ourselves. We have to start to heal ourselves from the inside out. And it starts off with things like positive affirmations. Believing that you are special, believing that you're amazing, believing that you're a powerful being. Because the other mindset we've been programmed to believe is that we're weak, we're this, we're that, we're ugly, our hair is no good, and all this other kind of crazy stuff. Our language was no good. We don't even know what language we spoke. We're completely lost. We don't even know what things we were spiritually, you know, now we're starting to remember it as we research them and travel, but we didn't even know what our religions were or nothing like that. To get to the next level as people on this planet, no matter what race you are, you have to heal from the inside out. And if you can't heal from the inside out, these epigenetic memories will continue to be passed on. And at the end of 15 generations, people will still be suffering internally. Okay? We have people with PTSD and all kind of other psychological issues and problems, bipolar and everything else. And the reason is because of these epigenetic memories. And there's no amount of pharmaceuticals that's going to heal that. You have to start being positive and doing affirmations every single day, because saying and uttering those positive affirmations, you know, to yourself, you know, just any, there's websites you can go to. Here's one, affirmation cards, abundance cards. You can get them online for free. You can get all this information for free. I have a song on iTunes called Affirmations, where I speak affirmations for 4 minutes, and you can memorize that, and you can just recall those things. It covers every topic of life, so that you can begin to talk and vocalize, because when you vocalize these affirmations, they come out of your throat. They then create what? A cymatic frequency in the ether of space-time, and these cymatic frequencies have been known to have power over not only the ether of space-time, but also over water. And what is your body made up of? So when you speak something out, if you can hear what you're saying, that's also coming back into your body. When you wish ill against somebody, when you threaten somebody, that's still, you're altering your DNA in a negative way. And science has been done, studies have been done where words against water have created different types of crystal formations based on what the words were. If you put a word of love on a jar of water and freeze it and then analyze it under an electron microscope, you see a beautiful crystal. If you put I hate you in that same condition and analyze it under an electron microscope, the crystal is malformed, sometimes even dark. And the body is 70–80% water. So the words we choose to say and put out have power, and the only way to reprogram your DNA is by doing positive affirmations and putting positive thoughts out about yourself, and thinking about yourself in a positive light, and thinking about the power that's inside of you, and commanding everything in your life work out the way that it should, to the best, you know, for your best benefit and for your family's best benefit, and not playing the victim role consistently all the time, because that puts you in a low frequency mindset. And so we have to begin to reprogram our DNA through affirmations. That's just one way. An enzyme named helicase will unzip your DNA. This happens when you start saying affirmations. There's an enzyme released in the body that will unzip your DNA. The enzyme named primase marks the construction start point for the new strand of DNA. And then the DNA polymerase will bind to the DNA and create the new strand of DNA. Human DNA replicates at the rate of 50 nucleotides per second. Per second, guys. In both cases, replication occurs so quickly because multiple polymerases can synthesize 2 new strands at the same time by using the unwound strand from the original DNA double helix as a template. This is real science. So as you're saying positive affirmations, there's no wait time. There's no wait time for this to happen. You can start reprogramming your DNA right now, today. There's no delay needed. So somebody's taking a picture? You got it? Okay. So play this video here real quick. This is what happens when you start saying positive affirmations. This is what's happening in your body. So when you hear people say, I'm going to reprogram my DNA.
DNA is a molecule made up of two strands, twisted around each other in a double helix shape. Each strand is made up of a sequence of 4 chemical bases, represented by the letters A, C, G, and T. The 2 strands are complementary. This means that wherever there's a T in one strand, there will be an A in the opposite strand, and wherever there's a C, there will be a G in the other strand. Each strand has a 5' end and a 3' end. The 2 strands run in opposite directions. This determines how each strand of DNA is replicated. The first step in DNA replication is to separate the 2 strands. This unzipping is done by an enzyme called helicase and results in the formation of a replication fork. The separated strands each provide a template for creating a new strand of DNA. An enzyme called primase starts the process. This enzyme makes a small piece of RNA called a primer. This marks the starting point for the construction of the new strand of DNA. An enzyme called DNA polymerase binds to the primer and will make the new strand of DNA. DNA polymerase can only add DNA bases in one direction, from the 5' end to the 3' end. One of the new strands of DNA, the leading strand, is made continuously, the DNA polymerase adding bases 1 by 1 in the 5' to 3' direction. The other strand, the lagging strand, cannot be made in this continuous way because it runs in the opposite direction. The DNA polymerase can therefore only make this strand in a series of small chunks called Okazaki fragments. Each fragment is started with an RNA primer. DNA polymerase then adds a short row of DNA bases in the 5' to 3' direction. The next primer is then added further down the lagging strand. Another Okazaki fragment is then made, and the process is repeated again. Once the new DNA has been made, the enzyme exonuclease removes all the RNA primers from both strands of DNA. Another DNA polymerase enzyme then fills in the gaps that are left behind with DNA. Finally, the enzyme DNA ligase seals up the fragments of DNA in both strands to form a continuous double strand. DNA replication is described as semi-conservative because each DNA molecule is made up of one old, conserved strand of DNA and one new one.
One new one. Happening right now while you're sitting here. Okay? So we've covered the fact that everything in this universe is made of light, that we're living in a light matrix, that we're on a grid. Everything is an electromagnetic wave. Even your body is made of waves. Even your thoughts are made of light, because all electromagnetic waves are light waves. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean they exist. All electromagnetic waves are light. Even dark matter and dark energy are all light. We're calling them dark because our human eyes can't see them. But even dark energy and dark matter are light. And we've understood now that light is what? Intelligent. Light is intelligent, independent of being a part of your avatar. Light itself, in the most fundamental basis of just particles, has its own intelligence built into it, and you're a literal body full of power and energy of trillions of volts of electricity that house this knowledge and wisdom, and your DNA can store all the data from your ancestors all the way back to the beginning of time. You have all this wisdom, energy, and power flowing through your entire body as we speak, and the capability of reprogramming yourself on the fly. And then we sit here and we cry about this and that and how come this didn't happen for me and everything else. And when you do that, you relinquish your power. You relinquish all your energy. You're giving away all the power that you have to what I call archonic energy, archons that absorb that energy and utilize it in other dimensions. You have all this going for you, and people in other realms, your ancestors and everybody else, are sitting back looking and waiting for you to get up and start walking and running, because this is inside of your body. How do we utilize this in the law of attraction before we close here? In the matrix, when you are in sync with the universal consciousness, you will warp and bend the matrix, and the law of attraction will kick in, allowing your needs and wants to fall toward you. Simply put, the law of attraction is the ability to attract into our lives whatever we are focusing on. It is believed that regardless of age, nationality, or religious belief, we are all susceptible to the laws which govern the universe, including the law of attraction. It is the law of attraction which uses the power of the mind to translate whatever is on our thoughts and materialize them into reality. How do we get in sync with the universal consciousness? To do this, we must first raise our vibration of thoughts. In the third dimension, the universe only responds to high-frequency thoughts. Become conscious of your thoughts. Everything you think, say, or feel becomes your reality. Practice acts of kindness. Be conscious of the foods you eat. Try to eat living foods. Drink a lot of water. Meditate. Show empathy. Stop watching media that has low vibrational messages. Intense study and research. And be grateful for everything. And one last thing. Exercise unconditional love. That's the last thing. All right? Thank you. So, when we begin to operate on this frequency and this level, understanding how the universe really truly works, taking away all the mysticism out of it and saying this can really be applied. I am a light being. I am full of power. I am strong. I can succeed at anything I set my mind to do. Now, how do I actually get things to fall toward me? Because when you're operating in the law of attraction, things fall towards you. Let's look at Einstein for a second. The general relativity is the name given to Einstein's theory of gravity. This has to do with the curvature of space-time and how mass or gravity can actually warp or bend space. We as humans have the ability to bend the matrix to our will using basically our mind, so to speak. So if you look here at this diagram, you see this planet Earth warping space-time around itself. Even your body warps space-time. So as you're sitting here right now, space is warping around your body. Okay, so now imagine your consciousness being able to warp space-time, because what happens in a field when space is warped? Things fall toward the planet. So as you, if you put something in space and it's not in what they call a stable orbit, it'll fall towards the planet. It'll fall towards the sun or wherever that body is, because space is bent, and so things fall inward, okay? So if you look at here, imagine, I just used Einstein's head, but imagine that Einstein's head is your consciousness in space-time. Where you are right now, you have the capability through thought to warp the ether of space-time around your consciousness in a way. If you're vibrating on a high frequency, you will be able to synchronize with what I call the Christ consciousness. It doesn't mean Jesus Christ. Okay, thank you. It doesn't mean Jesus Christ. It means the level of consciousness that has the capability of helping you quantum entangle with the universal consciousness. Okay, there's a Christ. Christ is an archetype for a level of consciousness. And out there in space-time, some people may want to call it the Akashic Records and all those other but this exists. And when you actually are at a high frequency, and now we know how to do it, meditation, eating right, unconditional love towards others, positive thoughts, affirmations, understanding the amount of power that's truly in your body, not being depressed, sad, withdrawn, and hurt, and all these other kind of things. But understanding the power that's in you and not allowing negative things to change your physiology, always finding the good in things and looking to rise higher consciously will put you in a high vibration. That's scientifically proven, because I can put a cap on your head and I can see how your vibrations are, like I said earlier, when you're sad or depressed or when you're happy and excited. It's going to give me two readouts on the computer. One's going to be a high oscillation, one's going to be a low oscillation. It's science. It's not fake. Now you synchronize with the Christ consciousness, which then entangles you with the universal consciousness. And then what happens? Things start falling into your life, everything that you need and want. If you're struggling with a car payment, all of a sudden the money shows up. If you're having a situation with a child that's sick, they begin to get better. If you're struggling with something in your personal life, it could be anything. If you're trying to build a business and you're struggling and now doors are opening up. But here's the thing with law of attraction. Windows of opportunity for whatever the topic is that you're trying to attack will open and close. They will open, and if you don't have the intuition or the vision or the sight to see that opportunity and take advantage of it, that window of opportunity will eventually close and you will miss out on the opportunity. It's not just going to be, sometimes it's like it just falls in your lap, but a lot of times we have to enact, we have to put action behind. So it's not just a matter of saying, oh, I want this to happen. And there's a few techniques behind this. You have to be extremely specific for the law of attraction to work. Some of you may have saw my video on this. There's a gentleman who wanted a car. Okay, he was talking to me. He said, I haven't been able to manifest this car. I really need a car because my car I'm driving now is literally falling apart. I said, well, what kind of car do you want? He says, well, you know, something in the $15,000 to $20,000 range that can do that. I said, no. What's the car? He goes, well, I haven't test driven one yet. I said, it's not going to work for you. Okay, it's not going to work. You have to get in the car. Go to a dealership. Test drive cars. Find out the one you specifically want. Then, now get the facts report on the Carfax. Get all the details, all the information on the car. You should know the color, the interior, the brake system, the wheels, alloy or whatever. You need to know the exhaust system. Every aspect of that car as if you already owned it. You need to then envision yourself with the mind was what? Manifesting. Get in the car in your mind and drive the car around like you do. If the first day you buy a car, what you do? You go visit everybody, right? Hey, check out my new ride. Visit everybody. Don't test drive the car in your mind like, I wish this was mine. This is what it would look like. No, test drive the car as if you already owned it. It is already done. Go in your mind, which is where the real reality is located, and go take the car around to people's houses and so forth, and even maybe, you know, drive the car around, maybe pop the hood, look under the hood, everything like you would do in a real world situation, but do it in your mind where the power is located. Now, begin to say it. I command this vehicle into my life. I command this car into my life. I command that this will be mine, that I will actually physically own this car. Command it. Don't get on your knees and cry and whine and beg for it. We've all been there. Don't do that. Because why? Because that begging mindset is a low frequency, low vibration. The universe, don't hear it. Command it. Everything you do when you pray should be commanding. You don't pray like you have no power. If you're praying without power, you're wasting your time. You just got some calluses on your knees. That's all you did. Okay? Or your forehead. Correct, sir. You got to understand this. The same power that created this entire universe is inside of your body right now. The same divine energy, the same divine spark, all that's inside of you, and you're not tapping into it. In Western medicine, they command things into existence. There's a famous video with Greg Braden in China at a holistic hospital with no tools, no scalpels and all this other kind of stuff. The lady's got gallbladder cancer, got about the size of a softball in her gallbladder. They put it live on TV with the ultrasound. The doctors are all around her, touching her body, and they're saying, wook-sha, 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 over and over again. And while they're doing this, that's the prayer, by the way. While they're doing this, the gallbladder disintegrates right on the camera in 15 minutes, and it's gone. So Greg Braden goes, hey, man, what were you guys saying? He said, well, that was our prayer. He said, well, what does the prayer say? The prayer says, it is done. That's the prayer. He goes, wow. The guy goes, the monk goes, yeah, you guys don't do that in the East. You don't know how to pray. That's why things don't happen for you over here. Look at the state of the planet right now. We have 7.5 billion people. 85.9% of them are religious, praying multiple times a day. Times that by 7.5 billion, that's trillions of prayers going up a day. Look at the state of the world. Look at the state of the world. People fighting over politics. People fighting over this race and that race. People fighting over this and that, and I'm better than you, and you're better than me, and all this other kind of foolishness. People going to war for people that never been to war, to kill people halfway around the world that are living in $5 tents. And these all people that are praying to these deities and thanking them, deity, for allowing them to kill people. And rape them and everything, and also, look at the police brutality. I hope there's no police officers, but the police brutality on in this planet is out of control worldwide. And all those people, the majority of them are Catholics. The majority of them. Not all of them, but the majority of them. And they're going to sleep at night, and they're saying their little prayers and their Hail Marys, and they're going to sleep good at night. These prayers that they're doing are a waste of energy. They're giving all of their energy over to demonic entities, in my personal opinion. Archons and other dimensions that siphon that energy away. And the true reality, when you look at how the law of attraction works, it works off of power. And it doesn't mean it's your ego. I know some people say, well, some people they're not even good people, but everything's working out for them. Well, let's look at the NBA, for example, okay? 500,000 boys play basketball in high school every year. Out of 500,000, only about 70,000 will go to college to play basketball at every single D1, D2, D3. I noticed because I'm Team USA basketball coach. I recruited players for years. Out of that, guess what happens? Next over from college is what? Pros? 30 might make it. Out of 500,000, 30 might make it. You look at the team. You got Michael Jordan, right? At that time, one of the best players in the world. He's playing in every single game. But the guys who made it through that funnel to get to the NBA, sitting on the end of the bench, never get in the game. You don't even know who they were. If I told you to name all 12 players on the Bulls team, you couldn't give me all 12. You might give me the top 6, 7. But there's people that went through that funnel to get to that point and never got in the game. They were that good to get there, but Michael Jordan, he's just better than them, right? Scottie Pippen, just a little bit better. There's people on this planet that just are in the right place at the right time, or just have the right knack, the right whatever it is, right frequency to draw things into their life a little bit better than others. Just like in the NBA, you can be Michael Jordan on the team and play in every single game and score 40 points a game. Or you could be the guy on the end of the bench that nobody even knew you even existed. Matter of fact, most of the games you had to wear a suit because you weren't even suiting up. But you're in the NBA, though. You have to understand there's levels. There's levels to everything, okay? I like to compose music, but I'm not the greatest composer in the world. Hans Zimmer, I can't even touch him. But we both make music, you see? There's levels. There's levels. So if you're in a position where you're at a level consciously that these things are not manifesting for you at will, then you got to study, practice, and learn and develop your technique and your tactics to be able to make these things happen for yourself. And I think that's one of the most important things that I wanted you guys to go away with today. Prayers, most people understand it. An earnest hope or wish, a solemn request for help, begging an invisible sky wizard. Prayer as I understand it, sending a valid request into the universal consciousness and expecting that request to manifest before the request is even sent. Commanding the universal and galactic forces by sending my matching frequency into time-space, which is quantum entanglement, and bending the matrix to my will. Expecting completion before completion, and wielding universal powers through conscious thought, power over my own destiny. Do you see the difference? The mental. How I see things and how somebody else may see things totally different. When I came here to come to New York City, I didn't beg and hope and pray that I arrived here safely and that my plane didn't crash. Please don't let my plane crash. I commanded my flight to New York City be right on time and everything work out just as it's supposed to. I command that my pickup to the hotel is safe and I arrive at my hotel safely. I commanded on my way here today, I'm going to arrive at this location on time and safe. I command it. And that's not ego, that's power. You have to understand the difference. Okay? If somebody said to me, you want to play Michael Jordan in a one-on-one, if I take the challenge to play Michael Jordan, if I say yes, but you better believe in my heart of hearts, I believe I could beat him. Now, are the odds against me that I will lose? Yes. But if I take the challenge, I'm believing in my heart of hearts, I'm going to beat him. So if you're going to take the challenge to maneuver through this matrix and live your life and try to manifest things into your life, and that means you're getting in the game. You're saying, yes, I'm getting in the game. And then you got the weak thoughts and, oh man, I don't know if it's going to work out and all this other kind of stuff. You're not really in the game. You're dabbling. You got to get all the way in or all the way out. Either you're going to be in the matrix and, like in the Matrix movie where the guy was cutting the steak when he was visiting the agents and he was like, this is so good. Or you could take the red pill and you can wake yourself all the way up and start realizing the true power and destiny that's inside of your body and commanding things into existence, utilizing everything from understanding how the light vessel in you works, how your consciousness interacts with the universe, and how you can focus on something specifically and be very extremely specific about it, write it down, and you can then focus on it, then meditate on it through manifestation meditations where you're actually envisioning it happening, whatever it is, and bringing that reality into your life through that kind of conscious thought backed by action. And through that method and understanding what I talked about today, you should be able to positively impact your life and your future life, and you should be able to reprogram your DNA, and you should be able to start to begin to find out how to command things into existence. I had a few people here, I'm wrapping up right now, it's my last thing I'm going to say, that I talked about, they saw me talking about commanding parking spots, okay? Are they still here? It works. You have to understand that you have to think about it in a way that you truly believe it's going to happen. If the smallest amount of doubt falls in, it might not happen. And then you have to also perfect that technique. But that's just a small way to test your true power. Thinking about parking spots, but you have to do it long before you leave the house, or long before you head out to your destination. You have to begin to envision those spots opening up. But that's just one small true test of how much power you have in your body. And I want. Hey, listen, we live. We live, man, we live. But look, I appreciate every single one of you. Please follow me on Forbidden Knowledge on Instagram, and thank you very much.
Give it up, Billy Carson, New York City. Thanks for coming out, my brother. I appreciate it, man. Definitely appreciate it, man.